Caught up with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got a good show lined up for you. We're going to get here in just a minute. We'll get to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. We're going to be joined by Max Starks. Second half of the show, we'll be joined by John Cornell, JC, talking about the world of sports. But let's get straight to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline, and we're joined by former Gator Super Bowl champ, Big Max Starks. Good morning, Max. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good, Shane. Happy to be here.
Actually, Maximilian Starks.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. The fourth on top of that.
Well, Max, let's go back to your younger days. You grew up in Orlando. You were a hoopster. I was reading that you used to play basketball as a youngster, and you couldn't find shoes to fit you. And old Shaq gave you some old hand-me-downs.
Yeah, Shaq was very gracious and kind enough. I wrote a letter to him, addressed it to the Magic facility, and and next thing I know, I got a humongous box full of all Reebok gear. Right, I had Emmitt Smith's in there, so I had some of his shoes. I had a couple of Shaq's style shoes, and they were big shoes. I mean, I had to stuff the toe box, for a little while, but I was excited because I was like, I actually have shoes that are in style and in fashion that were available to me, and so that was my first touch with dealing with professional athletes.
Well, you were a basketball player. When did you decide to try football?
Well, so here's the funny thing. My first passion was football, and I got denied. It was the Callahan Express Pee Wee football team in my neighborhood, and I went in for Pop Warner tryouts when I was like 6, and I got on that scale, the dreaded scale, and I was too big to play even with the higher ups in Pop Warner. I was too heavy back in those weight classes. So I got turned away from football, and then it wasn't until high school until I got another opportunity to actually play. It was before City League football became popular, where it was by age, birth certificate, and no weight classes. So that was already passed. So it's my freshman year at Jones High School was my first chance of playing football.
Now, didn't you end up going to Lake Highland Prep?
Yeah. I switched over from Jones High School after my sophomore year, and I went to Lake Highland Prep my junior and senior years.
Okay, yeah, you're a big human being, and people aren't aware Max is about 6'8". When he was playing, went about 370. Big human being. So I read somewhere Lake Highland Prep, or it may have changed now, but you're the only professional athlete that I think's ever come out of there?
Yeah, well, that's being tested. Obviously, you had Jordan Berry from North Carolina, Final Four kid, basketball, that was at Lake Highland as well, but he's kind of overseas right now, not in the NBA currently. But up until that point, I was still the first, and I won't likely be the only in the next couple of years. They're getting really good at sports, but I was the only professional athlete. I mean, we've had divers that have gone to the Olympics, Ricky Viola, and such. So we've had Olympians, but not necessarily professional athletes to the scale of the big sports in America.
So you get ready for your senior year. You start getting recruited by a lot of people around the country. What made you choose to be a Gator, and what other schools were you looking at?
So it was funny. Like my junior year was like I transferred schools. I was in their spring jamboree, and a couple of schools had started to notice me, bigger schools, because my first scholarship offer was actually my sophomore year, and it was Citadel and University of Pennsylvania sent me my first formal offers back when I was at Jones. But none of the big schools really picked up. Like a couple of the HBCUs, Florida A&M, who comes in and recruits at the time for our band, had looked at us. BCC at the time, now BCU, Bethune-Cookman. Also, but when I got to Lake Highland, there's a lot more eyes. And then I went to a couple of camps. I went to University of Georgia's football camp that summer. I went to University of Michigan's football camp with a couple of my teammates. And then it seemed like that after that, I got a lot of attention. And for me, the top 5 came down to, it was Florida, it was Georgia, Florida State, USC, Notre Dame were right up there in my final choices. And UCLA was there for a little bit just because I wanted to go on the official visit, right? anytime Hugh Hefner's name is thrown in with an official visit, you got to at least think about it. And so when I was looking at it, and it came down to a visit that Coach Collins and Coach Spurrier took to my school. And it was during basketball season. We're sitting in our little gym. It's hot, and we're having basketball practice. And, literally in the stands is Coach Spurrier, right? The head ball coach sitting up there, and Coach Collins watching my entire basketball practice. All my friends are, like, freaking out because, like, more than half of them are Gator fans. Like, dude, Steve Spurrier's watching our basketball practice. And the other guy's like, dude, he's not here for you. He's here for Max. I'm like, so it's like you get all of that, and we're running suicide, shooting free throws. And I remember going downstairs to our athletic director's office, and we sat in his office, and Coach Spurrier sitting right across from me, and he just asked me a simple question. He's like, Maxie, let's think about this. He said, your future is not behind the three-point line. It's in the three-point stance, son. You just need to go ahead and come on to Florida. What's that? And you're taken aback, right? You're a 17-year-old kid, and you think you're doing something in basketball. Like, I got a couple basketball offers, and just to have Coach Spurrier give you that Coach Spurrier-ism that you're always hearing about or seeing on press conferences in front of you just took me back. And I never took an official visit to Florida. I went up there unofficially. One day, my mom and I were like, "Hey, let's just drive up. It's a close trip," and we spent the day there. We spent the day there with Dr. Carradine, with Coach Collins, Coach Spurrier, and just kind of went through the campus, went through the academics, and just did it unofficially on a weekend. And the rest of them, I went to Florida State, I went to Georgia, I went to Michigan, I went to Notre Dame, and I went to USC on those official visits. But that was an unofficial visit. And when it came down to it, it was just one of those things where I prayed about it the night before, and I just tried to think about, what would my future look like? Where would I have the best chance to succeed? And the night before, I was all in for Florida State, and my cousin, Travis Johnson, was all in on Michigan, and we're on the phone talking to each other. He's in California. I'm in Florida. I'm trying to tell him to come to Florida State, funny enough, and he's trying to pitch me to go to Michigan. And then that morning I prayed about it, and I was in my coach's office. I was just, please give me a sign, please give me a sign. I looked up in my coach's office that day, of all days. He had all the college helmets in his office. And for some reason, all of them were out getting refurbished, and the only full-size helmet that was in there was a Florida helmet that day. And he had no clue that I was even considering Florida because he knew what my official visits were. But that was my sign. I remember running through the athletic hallway and through the basketball gym up to where the signing day area was, and there was 4 of us signing. And I just walked in the room late, holding the Florida helmet in my hand, and the room just erupted.
Oh, wow.
Waiting for this. And my mom, she ran to the mall and she grabbed like all 6 hats because she didn't know what hat to grab, and she couldn't find a cool Florida hat. So she went to, remember those little kiosks that where you could do the custom stitched hats and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Which was popular in the 90s, right? She had me a custom made Florida one because she couldn't find a Florida hat.
Wow.
so I'm wearing this. And so that's how I came up with Florida. And I was so excited, so ecstatic. And it was just, and ever since, it's been the greatest decision I ever made.
No doubt about it. We're speaking with Max Starks on the Titan MR hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at MaxStarks78. So you get to the University of Florida, and Coach Spurrier was your head coach for a little bit, but you also had Ron Zook. Talk a little bit about, would you say the best team you were on? I want to say, was it 2000, 2001, Rex at quarterback. I had Jabbar on yesterday. You had Riche, Taylor Jacobs. That team, a lot of Florida fans kind of overlook because of the loss to Tennessee late in the year. But that team was as talented as anyone. Talk about that team.
Yeah, that was our national championship team. Point blank, not even going to deny it. That was the team that should have been playing in the national championship. Unfortunately, because of the events that happened earlier in that season with 9/11 up in New York, prevented that Tennessee showdown that weekend because all the stadiums were locked down for safety reasons, and it postponed the game to the game after FSU. at the end of the year. But that team, I mean, we were so gifted. We were so talented because you talk about the weapons offensively. Also, Ernest Graham was in the backfield. Ernest goes down before that Tennessee game because of the whole Darnell Dockett knee injury. And then our offensive line, I mean, we had Mike Pearson on one side at the left tackle. I was at the right tackle. Shannon Snell, Tommy Moody at the guards. And then we had Zach Zadelis as a center, along with Dave Jorgensen running swing on the inside on the offensive line. Plus, we had Aaron Walker. We had Ben Troop at tight ends. So, I mean, you had those two tight ends, and Ben was just coming into his own. And then, of course, he explodes after that junior and senior year. But offensively, the most talented. And then you had Rex back there, who should have won the Heisman that year. But, of course, Eric Crouch wins the Heisman with rushing touchdowns and not passing ones. So, you know, that was a very talented. And then defensively, you think of Lito Shepard on the other side, Kewan Ratliff, your corners. Then you have Andre Davis. You have Alex Brown. I mean, you had all of these weapons. Marquand Manuel on the back half. We had such talented depth defensively as well. It was one of the best teams I ever played in. And outside of a 2-point conversion, you know, that can't get held in the back of the end zone, really kind of was the only thing that separated us from having a national championship and an SEC championship appearance back to back. And, you know, I look at that season, we were just building up for this. And that FSU game, we beat FSU that year. And Ernest Graham taking that injury really hurt our offensive firepower, not being able to be balanced. So we go into the Tennessee game at the end of the year, and it's a lot of spread because, you know, we don't have Rob G in the backfield, Robert Gillespie. You know, we still have Rand Carthon back there, but it still wasn't as experienced as having Ernest. Like, Ernest was the run game threat. And when we ran the ball with Ernest, it was a totally different look offense, but we had to go to a lot more 4 and 5 wide spread sets. And Tennessee was doing something at that time that we hadn't seen all year. It was that Baltimore Ravens schoolyard walk-around defense. And had we have played Tennessee earlier in the year, they would not have had Will Overstreet. They would not have had John Henderson playing in the game. So that defense was nothing without them. Well, we get fast forward to the end of the year, you got a healthy John Henderson standing 6 yards off the ball where a Mike Backer would be and charging full steam ahead because there's no silent count, and was just blasting Zadelis. And I think at that point it was actually Dave Jorgensen was in at center and blasting him off the ball, and Will Overstreet standing up, Constantine Ritzman. All these big guys were standing up and running around, and we had no answers for it, but we held that game to a 2-point conversion. And if Kelvin Kite didn't hold on to the ball, I mean, we're talking a different story. But that team was just so talented. The points we put up, the yards we put up was just phenomenal that year.
Yeah. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today, 352-244-0840. Talking with Max Starks in the Titan MR hotline. So what were your thoughts when the head ball coach says, I'm going to the Washington Redskins?
It was a tough day, right? It was a tough day as a student athlete, right? Because the reason why I came to University of Florida was because of Steve Spurrier. It was because of the fun and gun offense, the innovation that he brought. And, you know, it was one of those things I enjoyed playing for Coach Spurrier. And so it was one of those moments where it was kind of bittersweet. But then in my mind, I was like, you know what? Having him in the NFL might mean I have a better shot at making it in the NFL, right? So I was like, you know what? You know, it's not a bad thing. I hate that I won't have him my last 2 years. But you know what? Him going to the NFL is a natural progression because we missed our national title chance that year. And then we go to the Orange Bowl and absolutely murder Maryland in the Orange Bowl. And you know, and then what does he do? He makes right by that promise that he's going to try and get his guys there by drafting Taylor, bringing you in, and bringing a lot of different Gators in over the years. And I thought that was what was awesome about that. Is like he was loyal to his own. And I thought that was kind of one of the cool things that I thought about Coach was that he never forgot that. And I think that's where we kind of look at, okay, this was the right decision, but you realize all good things come to an end eventually, and Coach loved the golf course a little bit more than he liked practice.
So Max, when you had Rex, and obviously we all know the tremendous career Rex had here, but then you've also blocked for Chris Leak. And I think a lot of people don't realize the career Chris Leak had here. You know, he's our all-time leading passer. What was the biggest difference in Rex's style and Chris Leak?
You know, the funniest thing is, you know, I was blessed and fortunate, like you said, right? I played with Jesse, I played with Rex, and I played with Chris. And, you know, Chris just, I mean, to this day, throws quite possibly the most beautiful football I've ever seen thrown by a human being. And and it wasn't like it was the velocity, right? Like Rex threw with a lot of velocity, but the ball just looked beautiful in the air and it went to the exact spot it was supposed to for the receiver. And I think it was just kind of, you know, his confidence that he had even from a young age. Because I mean, this is a true freshman starter, right? And you know, and he played the game. He understood the game so well. Whereas Rex would kind of freestyle. Rex would be Rex at times and, you know, forget the play and then just make up his own play. And I think it was just that knowledge and that confidence he had in himself and his abilities that really shined through for such a young guy. Whereas Rex just had that chip on his shoulder, underdog. You know, I'm gonna show them. They want to make it a 2-quarterback system. No, I'm QB1 in a 2-quarterback system, and he played with that edginess. Whereas Chris just had this smooth confidence. It was like watching still water on a lake, you know. And whereas Rex is like, no, we're charging straight ahead. If I can't walk on this water, I'm gonna run on this water. And so it was just those two different approaches. But I love both of their styles. But Chris was just that smooth, calm, even keel, nothing rattled him type of personality. So, but yeah, and like you said, leading passer in Florida history, and he split time with Tim Tebow at the end of his career, and still was able to put up those numbers. He's the guy that can get you from your own 10 to the opponent's 10, and then of course it was Tebow time after that. But you know, you cover 80 yards of football on every drive. That's saying something.
Yeah, we're speaking with Max Starks on the Titan MR hotline. Max, you get drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, you go and win 2 Super Bowls. I mean, that's pretty nice. I mean, I played 14 years and I couldn't even make it to a NFC or AFC championship game. Talk a little bit about how cool it was playing for one of the best franchises in all of football and being a Steeler.
Yeah, it was a blessing. I mean, University of Florida prepared me for the stage that is the NFL, right? Because you know, when you play SEC football and you play in front of 100,000 fans, you kind of get used to the enormity of the moment. And when you get to the NFL, that same enormity of the moment can either consume you or can empower you. But when I got to Pittsburgh, I didn't understand the tradition, right, of Pittsburgh at the time. You know, I'm a Southern kid. I'm from the South. I watched the Dallas Cowboys and the Miami Dolphins. I mean, that was really, you know, the only 2 teams I really knew about growing up. And I think to go up there to Pittsburgh, to learn that history and to learn what it meant to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, that blue-collar mentality and the pride that a town takes in its team was just like Florida. You know, if you're in Gainesville or you're in any surrounding area of Gainesville, people take pride in being a Gator. And I think that was kind of cool to step in from one historic organization or franchise, so to speak, and step into this one at the professional level. It was a smooth transition. And I mean, the history of the Steelers is the Steelers, right? I mean, at the time, that was the 3rd head coach ever, Bill Cowher, who drafted me. And to know that they were loyal to their guys and that if you bought into, you know, being a blue collar mentality and working towards a goal, it's going to pay off. And, you know, my first year, you know, I'm in there, I get drafted with Ben Roethlisberger, who's still playing to this day. And the guys that we had there, the Alan Fanekas, the Jerome Bettises, Deuce Staley, Joey Porter, a young Troy Polamalu, who's only a year older than me at the time. You know, all of these great Steelers that you're getting to play with and understanding the history and appreciating what standard they set for us. And for us to just hold the standard was amazing. And then, you know, my second year, my first year starting, you know, we marched through 20 straight games we fought and clawed at the end of the regular season to get that 6th seed, and then on the road, all 3 playoff rounds to culminate in Detroit, which was special to me because my mother's from Detroit originally. So to go back to my mom's hometown and play a Super Bowl, only the 2nd time ever it's been played there, and knowing at that point the history that the only the time Super Bowls played in Detroit was the year I was born, 2 weeks after I was born. I was born January 10th. That game was played on the 24th. And the only other person to play in that game that I knew was my father, Ross Browner. So to have that special moment of knowing my father played here, to the moment, almost 24 years before me, and to then go there and play and then build upon that, because he lost that game. It was San Francisco. I mean, who was going to stop the San Francisco 49ers and Joe Montana at that time? Nobody. But to go there and then win that game was so special. And then, of course, to get to do it a couple years later down in Tampa, the closest I would get to my hometown, made it really cool. And to go to 3 Super Bowls in my career was, like you said, a true blessing, because for guys like you and for so many other football players, not even getting the chance to do that, I got to do it 3 times. You almost feel ashamed that you got to do it so much. No doubt. Because, it's like, what did I do to deserve this? And I'm blessed and thankful for it. But it was such an amazing run, such an amazing team to have that opportunity. It's like, okay, I didn't get a national championship, but this extra Super Bowl kind of makes up for it.
Yeah. Speaking of your dad, you found out your biological dad was Ross Browner, who had a long career in the NFL. Joey Browner, Keith Browner, that family played a lot of football in the National Football League. If you don't mind, let us know when you found out that was your biological father and how that all transpired.
So it was going into my senior year. It was spring break my junior year. And I was actually out in California. I was going to do an unofficial visit to a spring practice at USC. And my mom and I had a conversation prior about, hey, what to expect going here, trying to get on the radar for a big-time blue blood like USC. So I was on spring break visiting my aunt out in LA. And, just kind of what she thought was going to, transpire. And I think her worry, when we talk about this afterwards, was that the AD at the time, Mike Garrett, played with Joey Browner. And she was like, the resemblance might kick into him and he might ask this question. And so she wanted me to be prepared because 2 of my uncles were stars at USC. I didn't know this at the time. I just wanted to go to USC because it was cool, right? I mean, Southern California and the mystique that was there. And so she felt it was the right time to have that conversation. So I'm getting ready that morning, and I'm upstairs at my aunt's house, and my mom calls me downstairs to the kitchen, like, hey, I got something to tell you. I want you to know this, and we've had a conversation, so it's good to have this moment now. But I figured I can't help you in this recruiting process as much as somebody else could. And so, I think it's the right time to let you know, that, your dad, who you're named after, is not your biological father. He's still your dad, but he's not your biological father. And that your biological father is somebody different who has a very prominent name and has a history within football. And we feel it's the right time for you to know. And he's on the line, at my aunt's kitchen on the phone, and he'd like to talk to you. And so that's the first time I ever talked to him. And it was kind of eerie. It was eerie to hear a guy who kind of sounded like me, who laughed very similar to me, and just had this knowledge to share. And he didn't come in and try and be a father and make up for 17 years of lost time, right? He came in and just said simply, I'm here as a resource for you. I'm here to be a mentor, advisor, however you want to look at it, but to create a relationship with you, to know that if you need anything or have any questions throughout this process or anything, I'm available to you. And so that was the first time I found out about it. And then fast forward to that summer, I go to that Georgia football camp. He lives in Atlanta, Georgia. At the end of that football camp, he drives from Atlanta to Athens to pick me up and take me to the airport back in Atlanta to fly back home. But we stop at his house, and I meet his wife, and I meet their youngest son at the house, and he also gives me kind of the Browner family history in that time. And, it's overwhelming. Like he gave me this photo album about that thick of just photos and everything and the history just kind of the family. But then he took me in his office, and to see all of these collegiate awards was overwhelming, to say the least, because, you dream of wanting to go to the College Football Hall of Fame and see all of these awards, and you realize there's a man that's in your life that actually has almost all these awards, everything short of the Heisman. What was just overwhelming as a young kid, loving football and wanting to be, progress his life within football. And it was overwhelming to see that. But to then physically see him and see the similarities physically face to face was just, it was uncanny, to say the least. And from there, we grew a relationship over time. Nothing was forced. I called him Ross for the longest time until, I said, hey, is it cool if, instead of me calling you Ross, I just call you Pops? And he was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I like Pops. and our relationship just grew naturally. I mean, now you're looking at it, it's back 21 years now from that moment, and we have a great relationship. And, I'm thankful for how it progressed. It wasn't forced. It wasn't rushed. It took its time and just matured. But it was a lot for me personally, because after that, I then take an official visit to Notre Dame. And let's just face it, I wasn't going to Notre Dame after seeing that, because I literally went up there in December, by the way, from Florida, right? Snow and me don't mix. The only thing you use snow for is to put in your drink, right? That's about it. So that was already a non-starter. But then he was going into the College Football Hall of Fame that year. And it was in South Bend at the time. So his pictures are everywhere, all plastered through the halls and everything at Notre Dame. And then he is like, at the time, he's the second most famous Notre Dame football player in history, only behind Joe. And so it's Joe, then there's Ross. And the history with him and Rudy, like he was the one that came out of the game to let Rudy go into the game. Okay. So it's like, I'm not going, and I'm an offensive lineman too? No way, no, I can't even, no, this is not going to happen. So it was just funny to go through that and see that, but the legacy really, really meant a lot to me, to know what I was stepping into. I'm not just paving a new path or trailblazing a new avenue. This is old hat. This is the Browner legacy. You're expected to play football, right? And you're expected to be good and successful at it. And I was like, but I can't go here. I was like, first of all, my name is different, and I didn't want to answer all those questions day in and day out at the time as a young man. But I wanted something different for myself. I wanted to have my own legacy. And that's what also kind of led me to go to Florida. And so I was blessed in knowing that. But, yeah, it's been tremendous to know the history that I've added to with my family. And, as I move forward, I try and instill that same type of tenacity and vigor. I have 2 girls, so I don't have the pressure of making sure they go play college football or anything. But it was important to me, and it was something that I've learned to appreciate. I looked at it as a negative and a pressure-filled situation, but I looked at now, being retired, I look back on it, I say that was a tremendous moment for me to know that I added to that legacy, and I'm a part of something that's been a constant in football all these years.
I mean, that's a great story. I'm glad we got to hear that, and all our listeners got to hear it. So, Max, you've been retired for a while. You've dabbled into sports radio. You do some XM stuff. Let everybody know what all you're involved with out there in Arizona.
So yeah, like you said, so I do Sirius XM radio. I'm on ESPNU. I'm on Mad Dog. I'm on Sirius XM NFL radio. I also co-host on the SEC Today show for Sirius XM. I also do NFL Network analyst work. I work for Stadium Network. I broadcast games for Fox in the Big 12 package. Stadium, I do Conference USA and Mountain West coverage for them. And then I also work locally. I cover the Cardinals as an analyst for the local radio and television out here for Fox 10 Phoenix and for 98.7 FM out here. And yeah, I mean, those are the main broadcasting things I do. I have business interests and we have 2 companies out in Omaha, Nebraska, where we do business development, commercial real estate, city ventures. And so between the entrepreneurship and the sports broadcasting, they keep me busy. Oh, also I work as a consultant at offensive line performance with Charles Bentley out in Chandler. So I stay very busy in a lot of different areas, but I keep my pulse on football collegiately and professionally. And, and then of course, business interests like you, Shane. I'm an entrepreneur. I want to do things, to help create new opportunities and avenues. So I'm always busy, always moving. Ben Troop and I used to have a podcast. It looked like we're going to probably restart that podcast coming up soon as well. But yeah, just staying active, staying busy amid a pandemic. We'll see what happens, obviously. Yeah. Let's move forward.
Talk a little bit about your reading rally that you do for the kids in Orlando.
Oh, yeah. So for 14 years, I've ran the Max Stars Charitable Fund in conjunction with Southern Ford Dealer. Has been one of my title sponsors for the last 10 years, and Scholastic Book has been my sponsor throughout my entire charity season. And so we ran a football camp the previous 13 years. And this year, because of COVID and the pandemic and not wanting to gather in large groups, we decided to create something new where I could still get my information out to them, which was I used the football camp as a guise to promote reading and literacy to my kids. So you had to participate in the football camp. And then at the end, we provided summer age appropriate, grade level appropriate reading materials to the kids so they had resources available to them. And so this summer, obviously not having the football component to it, we worked with Ford and developed a plan of doing these satellite reading locations and joining with different partners throughout the 5 counties in Central Florida to present opportunities for kids to still get those reading materials and still promote education and literacy from a different format. And so we went to Ford, we presented an opportunity and an idea of what we wanted to do. And Ford said, whatever you need, we got you. And Ford came, provided us with promotional materials, gave us a vehicle to deliver the trucks in, and helped us with the infrastructure and partnering with different community services throughout. We worked in Paramore, which is the area where I grew up in Orlando. And then we went out to Sanford. We partnered with the community food bank there. And we just chose different partners, 5 different partners to have these rallies. And we were able to distribute over 2,000 books to Central Florida kids. And so it kept with our mission and our purpose. Now, 14 years, we're over 22,000 books delivered into the community to kids to help them promote reading and literacy, and knowing that summer doesn't mean education stops. It's a year-round thing. You're constantly pursuing knowledge, and that knowledge is power. So to put books in their hands, to put opportunities in their hands, to imagine things beyond the current circumstances, kind of how we've operated. And we're looking forward, hopefully, to next year being physically in purpose to have a really big 15-year anniversary party, celebrating the camp and doing a lot bigger things with the kids, especially now with how technology has changed really for us and how we utilize it. I think it's even more important as kids become physically distanced from each other, and you're looking at kids on screens. I think it's important to give them the opportunities to be able to fully realize all of those capabilities and start to now focus on more tech-based and STEM-based learning opportunities for them. So it's just trying to create that sense of community ownership and also helping raise those kids and also give them opportunities they normally wouldn't have.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff, man. Last thing before we let you go, our producer found this clip of you doing this Coach Spurrier imitation. So we're going to show it real quick, and the producer's going to run it, and I'm going to come back and make some comments.
Hi, I'm Steve Spurrier, and today, guys, I want to talk to you about this game. Now listen. No, don't raise your hand. It's my time to talk. We got to go out there and we got to win. Now, I know last year when we played them, you guys stunk it up. And you know what? That's my fault as a coach. It's not you. No. It's not you. It's me. It's my fault as a coach. we got to do better. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass the ball around. A little fun and gun. You remember that? Remember that fun and gun? We throw the ball, we score points. I know, it's very simple. Defense, you're going to go out there, you're going to block all of them, the entire game. And then offense, you're going to block them as well. And guess what, QB? You're going to throw the passes. And receivers, you're going to catch them. It's that easy. Running backs, y'all get in there somehow. We'll work it into the game plan. Most importantly, we're going to go out, we're going to win. We're going to run some crescent routes. We're going to run a couple of short digs, and we're going to let it go. We're going to let that ball fly, boys. Now just remember, win. Or else, you'll see the tyrant. You know how that feels, but we'll win.
We just showed this where you imitated the head ball coach, you know. What made you do that? And secondly, before we let you go, I know you got a million stories for the HBC. We got to hear one. All former players have to tell a story before I let them go.
All right, perfect. Well, so that I was actually an intern at 120 Sports, and we were talking about the SEC, and we're giving projections for all the schools in the upcoming year at the time. And at that time, funny enough, I was an intern that was actually doing behind the camera work. And so for this, they said, just go sit in the chair, Max, be an analyst. That's what you want to be anyways. I know you're learning all the camera work and how to run a production booth and everything. Well, let's just interview you talking about the SEC. And I had to give the story. And so I was like, it's only right if you attempt a Coach Spurrier impersonation, because that's what everybody does. It's like a rite of passage that if you play for him, you must impersonate him at some point in your life. And so that's how that clip happened. But, you know, one of the funniest stories I'll never forget was after Ball State, my freshman year. And Shannon Snell and I are sitting next to each other. We went into the game on the left side, and we go in the game, and we whipped a completely bad block. I mean, Robert Gillespie got hit in the end zone for a safety. It was our first play ever. It was everything that could have went wrong. It was Murphy's Law on that play because we were just stunned. And so we get into the team meeting, and we're sitting in the team meeting. We're you know, in the old meeting room, you know, offense was on the right side, defense on the left side, line always sat in the back of the room, receivers and specialists sat down low. And so Shannon and I are sitting in that little two-seat in the back middle of the room. And so the lights are down. We're trying to sleep down because the play is getting close. We're like, oh, shoot, we're about to go in. Okay, we've been laughing all day. And so Coach Spurrier had just been getting on Riche. And you know, Coach Spurrier has a mind like a steel trap. He's going to call back plays from 1987 if he has to remind you. And so at this point, Riche had missed a route. And Coach Spurrier made a reference to him missing it his freshman year against Kentucky. And the down and distance and the time that he ran the Cresser route, right? The Cresser route, the famous route. and so we're laughing in the back that they made this reference. Well, the very next play is us. Coach Spurrier looks in the back. He's like, I don't know what y'all laughing about. We're like, especially you, Maxie. He's like, you're big enough to block two sons of guns, and you don't even block one, son. Look at the play. And then he plays it right there. And it's literally, I'll never forget, it was a draw play. And we get on the field, and there's like a 4-eye, and there's like a wide 5 technique outside of it. So there's 2 calls you could make, right? Shannon can get called in with the center and kind of double team up, and I just take the inside guy and let the wide guy go. Well, nobody makes a call. I say fan, expecting Shannon to come out and get that 4-eye, and I'm going to go out to the wide guy. So we had to set back and then go attack. I said, fan, fan, fan. Shannon's sitting there like this. Doesn't give me a relay that he heard me. And I'm like, I know you heard me because it's quiet in this stadium and I'm yelling at you. So the ball snaps. We set back. Shannon goes inside. I'm like, oh, God, the 4-eye's loose. The worst place you could be. So I think I'm smart and original. I try and back up. I'm like, I'm going to get them at the 2 points. They're going to intersect into me. And I'm just going to put my hands out, and I'm going to knock both of them off. And Rob Gillespie's going to go for 98 yards for a touchdown. Well, in my mind, it looked amazing. It was flawless. There was no issue with it. Practical application, I whiff. Both the guys dodge me. I fall on my face. They combo tackle Rob G in the backfield, and we get a safety. And I'm like, and I get up off the ground. I look to Shannon, and Shannon's looking at me like shaking his head. I said, "Why are you shaking your head? You were supposed to be out here." And so we argue on the sideline. Coach Spurrier just comes and just like, "What is wrong? Am I a bad coach? Am I a bad coach that you can't remember to fan outside? Why didn't you make a fan call, Starksy?" And I'm like, I did. Shannon's like, not saying a word, but just shaking his head. And so it was just one of those funniest moments that I had. My first time on the field, first interaction with coach in a sporting environment, and it was a complete utter embarrassment. And I got called out on it.
That's great, Maxie. All right, Big Maximilian Starks the fourth. We appreciate you joining the show, my man. It was awesome. We run out of time. Be safe out there in Arizona. Hopefully we'll be talking some college and NFL football here soon. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Appreciate it, Shane. Fingers crossed on that. Fingers crossed on college football, man. Take care.
That's Big Mac Starks. Join us on the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. We're going to take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll be joined by Johnny Cornell, JC, talking sports. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Hey Gators, this is Coach Steve Spurrier. Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep. Hey, welcome back to this Friday edition of Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We really want to thank our man, Maximilian Weisner Starks IV, for joining the program. He was outstanding. What a great story. If you didn't check that out, tell your friends about it. It was unbelievable. I want to get to a comment that Rick brought up on Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law, where you matter most. He said, "Max, thanks for doing the USO tours." And I didn't have time to get to that. I wanted to talk about that, Rick. But yeah, Max is a good dude, no question about it. But now we're going to go to the Titan Tomorrow Hotline. And we're joined by the one and the only, our hockey expert, Johnny Cornell. JC, what's up, my man?
Great to be on you Friday. So all of the in the area are going to be able to enjoy their day. I think, man, it's
JC, your internet is horrible, so you need to get somewhere where we can hear you.
Oh boy. Okay. Hold on. Let me move. I'm going to move. Let's see if I can go inside.
We don't care about seeing you. We just want to hear you.
All right.
That's much better. So, JC, okay. let's before we jump into a little hockey update, let's talk about what's going on in the world of college football. I want to get your opinion because you're very opinionated. But first, those wise guys out in the Big Ten. Okay, can you explain the logic here to me? They've canceled football, but it's safe for them to open all their campuses for classes. It's safe to let all the kids live in dorms. It's safe to let their athletes still train 20 hours a week in their sports and play intramural sports. What the hell are they thinking?
Well, I see that's the thing. I don't know if they are thinking. Being led by other outside forces, perhaps lawyers, perhaps presidents that just agree with the way things have gone those last few months with the social distancing protocols and such. I don't know why they don't understand that a football facility is most likely the safest place a young person could be in the current environment that we have.
Hey, JC, get off the video and just talk on the phone. We can't hear you at all.
I'll be right back.
We don't have much time. Just put the thing up to your ear.
Okay, right there. Here. Oh, dear.
Just put it up to your phone and talk.
Okay. Put it up
to your ear. But anyway.
All right. Can you hear that?
Yeah. So that's fine. Don't move.
Okay. I won't move. Well, I'm just saying, I don't understand why these people decided on April 13th, 6 days after they announced the schedule. And I would love to know how we went from flattening the curve to now going full lockdown to now going no football because they don't deem it to be safe. And I'm not sure it's people. I'm not sure they're the ones who are making these decisions, or they have outside influence who are doing it for them, meaning lawyers. I do believe that the liability issue is the biggest issue they're facing right now. And I don't know why the logic doesn't apply to everything. A football facility is likely the most safe place these people are going to be in, meaning these players, for probably their entire life, other than a house they buy. So I think there's a lot of inconsistency, and I don't really quite understand the timing behind it, because if they had planned to do this all along, which it sounds like the Pac-12 did, I'm not sure why they bothered with the scheduling.
Well, the Pac-12, from what I've heard, they haven't had any plans to play football all year. They already had a statement written up several months ago. They just changed the date. But JC, you tweet a lot. You're very opinionated. Nobody has done this anywhere that I've seen on Twitter or in the national media, and I want you to do this. I want you to get on there and tweet about the commissioner of the Big Ten, who obviously he is paid by, I guess, the presidents, all the universities of the Big Ten. So he has to do what they say.
Right.
But regardless, he says that their doctors say it's not safe to play due to whatever.
Okay.
However, his own son is playing football at Mississippi State. So my question to you, JC, if that were you as the commissioner and you knew or was told that it was not safe to play and your kid was playing football at Mississippi State, wouldn't you have your kid opting out?
Well, and that's why I don't think Kevin Warren truly believes what he's doing. He's being told what to do, and he likes his job. He's a brand new commissioner. He wants to do the right things to keep his security and his job security intact. I believe it's other folks who are making these decisions for these people, and they're the ones who are being the ones to talk to the media and to talk to the fans and so forth, because he did not answer directly many questions that were put to him on ESPN the next day. He skated around them as it relates to the logic behind this and what the things that you mentioned earlier were. So he's just basically – he's a soldier marching to his orders.
Right,
and
but my point is, why has nobody even brought that up? I want to hear his answer.
Well, sure. They tried to on ESPN, and he didn't. He skated around the question.
So somebody on ESPN did ask him about his son playing at Mississippi State.
They did, and I don't think the answer was what they were expected he would say. He is basically saying that this is what we are doing here, and we will let them make the decision in the SEC and the ACC. But right now, this is what's best for our athletes in the Big Ten. I'm sure he feels probably very similar to the way many people feel, in that it's probably not going to hurt these kids to play. But there are too many people out there who just simply don't believe in what's going on with this pandemic in terms of the safety measures that are being placed, because they want everything to be shut down. And that's why they came out in August instead of waiting until September or waiting to push it off until October, because they know in their minds that nothing's going to change between now and then. And if they think, and if you think they think they're going to play again in January or come back in January, February, I got a lake in Algeria to sell you. It's not happening.
Yeah, they're not playing at all. Today's a big day here in the state of Florida. We find out about high school sports. I think regardless of what the FHSAA and the Board of Governors or whoever's doing this meeting, regardless of whatever they come out with, there are plenty of high schools that are going to be playing football this year. Trust me on that.
I do believe that. Yeah.
Yes. Even if they say football is not allowed, there are plenty of schools that they've already have ways of playing. So, but I hope all high schools get a chance to play. They need to.
Well, I heard a football coach, Shane, at the beach last weekend, and a private school coach tell me that if they are shut down, they are going to make a third-party move, meaning they're going to try to organize something on their own as part of the private sector of high school football, and see what they can do about it, see if they get enough people to join on board.
No, that's very true, but there are public schools that already have stuff in place. If the vote doesn't go their way. So, for all the sake of all these high school athletes, I hope they get a chance to play.
I think what bothers me, QB, what bothers me real quick is that they're trying to translate this into young people the way it affects old, sick people. And the reality is that this flu does not affect, and I don't want to hear this about, well, what about 20 years from now? What about 30 years from now? You know what? 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we don't know what's going to affect any of us. But the fact is that young people are not at serious risk of dying with this virus. And I'll go to the mat with anybody who wants to argue that. They're wrong.
The big issue, the Big Ten came out with this heart issue or whatever. I can't even pronounce it. But what I've said, though, is the University of Florida, and I'm pretty sure other schools in the Southeastern Conference have been testing for this type of heart condition for years. I know they have at Florida, so this is not something new to us down here. JC, before we only got about 5 minutes because the interview with Max Starks was outstanding, and I could have gone hours with him. But we wanted to get JC on because we want a hockey update. Playoffs have started. With all your expertise and all your playing days of playing hockey, let us know what's going on in the NHL.
Yes. Well, we had the elimination round, which meant the team.
Get closer to the mic, please.
Okay, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Here I am. Right. Okay. So the teams that did not qualify in the top 4 seedings in each conference played a round robin tournament to see who would advance to fill out the seedings. We had that round completed, and now we are into a best of 7 game series in both the West and the Eastern conferences. So you have teams that were upset, that were higher seeds that went down, such as Edmonton losing to Chicago and the Pittsburgh Penguins losing to the Montreal Canadiens. So those teams advanced to play the higher seeds that were playing basically to see who would be 1 through 4. So they seeded these teams, and they will reseed them as they play, which is the right thing to do. But currently we're in the second session of the playoffs, which have been very successful. The teams have responded well to the bubble and to the distancing that they're being, the quarantine that they are being asked to uphold, and it's working for hockey because these games are good. Last night, Dallas scored with 20 seconds or 40 seconds to go to beat Calgary. We've had an overtime game with the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Columbus Blue Jackets that went to 5 overtimes. If that's not your thing, that's fine, but it's very intense, and they both want to win if they're going to go through that kind of efforts. It's almost like playing 2 games in one night at the same time. So we've had some very good upsets. We've had some favorites like Vegas right now looks like the best team in the entire playoffs. But Vancouver has shocked everybody. They have yet to lose. Well, they actually lost 1 game, but they've won most of all their games, and they beat St. Louis the other night, the defending Cup champions. So this is going to be very entertaining if you like hockey. If you don't like it, I would suggest you give it a shot. The fans are not there, so that takes away some of the atmosphere for these players, but they are playing hard. They are trying to win it. And there is a title on the line, just like the golfers. When they win the PGA, it matters, even though fans aren't there. So I'm excited for what they're doing. I think it's working. And I think we're going to have a really good Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, I agree. And JC, you're going to be part of the program next week. So I suggest in that big old house of yours, we find an office space and hook up one of your laptops where we can hear you.
I figured out the problem. The problem was I didn't have, for some reason, I forgot to put this on Wi-Fi. So,
yeah, well, you don't have to actually be on Wi-Fi to use this program.
I know, but this.
And I can't hear you right now either. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are you there?
Yes, we can hear you now. So.
Okay. Well,
we'll send over a crew and get you hooked up so we can hear you.
All right. Thanks, QB.
All right, JC. Be safe.
Right,
great
all
today,
right,
my man. That's John Cornell. Join us on the Titan MR hotline from somewhere where he has horrible internet access. Folks, don't forget, next week we got a great lineup for you. If you tell your friends about our show, go on Facebook and follow us. You can like us too, but follow us. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. I really want to thank Max Starks. I love saying his name, Maximilian Starks IV, for joining us. If you, that was a great interview. I learned a lot. His story about finding out who and when his biological father was is outstanding. So let people go back and check that out because it was outstanding, no doubt about it. Folks, have a safe weekend. And like I said, we got a tremendous lineup for you next week. Make sure you tune in and check out the program. But today's show is a wrap. It's brought to you by Wrap Spot. Everybody, have a good weekend. Take care.